Is it the similar autocratic power to what we're seeing in Russia, and how this is all going to play itself out, Garry?
No, thank you very much for having me. So you're absolutely right. It's a demonstration of power, because dictators, they know that the power is perception. And I think it was well staged to demonstrate that Xi Jinping had no more competitors. I am not a great expert on Chinese politics, but I think there were some doubts about Xi Jinping's very aggressive policies. And I read that his predecessor was one of the, quote-unquote, pro-Western advocates, arguing that China had to be more cautious in their approach. And this kind of demonstration was the sort of the best illustration of Xi Jinping's total control of Chinese domestic and foreign policy. It still remains to be seen whether his declaration about Taiwan will materialize, right. Because he's watching Russia's failure in Ukraine, and he might be thinking twice. But clearly, he has his eye on Taiwan, and again, it becomes a very important element of his overall success. And for those who are arguing that Ukraine, is not important for America, all dictators, they watch each other. And God forbid Putin had succeeded taking over Kyiv, Xi Jinping would be all over Taiwan. And think about consequences for global economy if Taiwan is attacked. Ukraine invasion caused humanitarian problems in the south, the food problems, food crisis. Now, what about semiconductors in Taiwan?
So, Garry, here's the question. It sounds that you would back Ukraine, I think, to the hilt. And I don't know what the hilt means. In the same way that it seems like President Xi would back Putin to the hilt, and I don't know what the hilt means. Where is the hilt, if you will? Meaning, is there a point at which there's a way to end this that doesn't involve nuclear weapons?
Okay, first of all, Xi Jinping is not backing Putin. China is sitting on the fence. And the reason is Putin is not winning the war. Actually, he's on the losing side. Xi Jinping is watching very, very closely, and he and his clients in the Central Asia, like Kazakhstan and others, they are demonstrating their distance from Putin. And Putin caused Russia to be isolated as never before in history. Now, let's start from the very beginning. Ukraine is a sovereign nation defending its land and people from a terrorist state. And for those who argue that, we have to consider that Putin, out of desperation, would use nukes, look, whatever can happen, by the way, I believe that using even tactical nukes is almost out of question. I think it's a very, very low probability. But the fact is that, if we let this dictatorship that has access to nuclear weapons to blackmail the free world, and we give in, so why do we need data? So what will happen with American influence if any state that is being attacked by dictators with nuclear power is defenseless? So Putin getting his way in Ukraine.
So Garry, what is the end game?
Lithuania or Poland.
What is considered a win? Is there a way for both sides to win? Is that a bad way to think about it? You've heard a lot
absolutely bad way. It's bad, immoral, and geopolitical blindness. It's a war that's where one side wants to destroy another. Putin's goals have never changed. It's the total destruction of Ukraine and elimination of Ukrainian nation. He has been saying it for years, and now his propaganda keeps talking about it even today. There's only way to end this war is for Ukraine to be liberated. There's no other way. Anybody who says the opposite, doesn't understand what's going on there, or has some interest that is not unknown to us.
For the critics or those who say they're pragmatists and they're looking for some kind of settlement, you tell them what?
I tell them that it's moral idiocy and total ignorance of lessons of history. Putin gets always, more aggressive when he gets what he wants. There's no other way to solve the problem as to liberate Ukraine. Otherwise, the whole international order goes bust. And America, by the way, benefited over decades because, the world had been playing by the rules. And Putin is trying to destroy this world order, which will affect everybody.
But Garry, there's all sorts of folks who have said, look, the cost the cost in terms of human lives, if in fact it ends with nuclear weapons, that cost to the world is too high. You say what?
Absolute shame. You know, the cost now is huge, but the Ukraine is paying this cost, and they're willing to pay the cost for liberation of their country. So why people sitting in their comfort of their mansions in Silicon Valley are telling Ukrainians how to conduct their own affairs? So yes, there is a potential threat of nuclear war, but it will get even worse if you give in, because then again, if Putin attacks Poland or Lithuania, then they're NATO countries. So what are we going to walk away? Or invoke Article 5, which means American soldiers will be on the front line. Ukraine now is doing what NATO was built for, and it's a front line of the battle between freedom and tyranny.